grade, like, yo, okay, now it's time for you to move to the next stage. And while I'm here, I try to learn as much as possible, and I learned a lot. Every time that I think about, man, you was going to leave, and think about it, you wouldn't have had even to learn that, and you would have needed that experience. I can see life as being a great teacher of experiences, right? But you got to throw yourself into it, and you got to challenge it. And so what I do is I challenge God's. That's the first thing I go at. Like, I go at what I think I believe in. And so I realized the other day, I thought about this. I said, man, if I don't even believe in God, how can I believe in people? And I sat on that one for a while. And then that all too familiar, very powerful voice, but so quiet, came in and said, because you believe in yourself. Like, we got to understand that the belief that you have in your brothers and sisters is directly tied into the belief that you have of you. So if you start writing them off, you're literally writing yourself off. This is really like that. It's like it is very counterproductive for the growth of your DNA to deny it and to actually be disgusted by it and not want it. And I believe that we also have to realize, even as a people, melanin people, when we're making others feel that way, right? Especially people that we even could say is our friends, right? Because I got friends that are all from different parts of the spectrum. But even in some cases, like, black folks will make white folks feel like that, basically, that they shouldn't even be here, that they shouldn't even be alive, that they shouldn't be created, that they're not even real, that they're ghosts and phantoms. And you got to just think about just that from a whole nother dynamic about the kind of person that you are. And if that clicks, if that ever clicks, it'll also click to you about the Bible and God killing up everybody in the Bible, how anybody that does anything like that, they should never get a pass. You should never be able to kill babies and get a pass. I don't care who you are. Like, on the last days of whatever, we'll meet in the sky then, and we'll go at it in, and that'll be the whole thing, because there are principles to life. And that's why I say love. You know, it's love. It's the Taurus. There's a principle to love, and it's pro-life. Why wouldn't it be? Right? If it wasn't, none of this would be here. If it didn't reach out to give the gift, something from nothing, the impossible, we still don't know where the first thing came from. It's impossible to figure it out. So that kind of force, if it didn't reach out an initial gesture, you try and tell me that ain't the most powerful thing is to give? That's why I say, hey, better to give than receive, my brother. Because if you can give, that means you're in the control point. And that's when I realized that this sovereignty thing was a big deal, because there's only a few of the gods that are sovereigns. And that was the whole concept of the Wujra Quran and the sailors, that they were all sovereigns. Sovereign was an actual term that you would receive when you reach a certain stage of actually being self-substantiated. This is what nirvana was really about. It basically means that you're not dependent on any of the elementals. So fire, water, earth, wind, all the air and all that oxygen, all that stuff, you don't need that to exist, right? And that's like, these are benchmarkers for things when you start calling yourself a creator. You see what I mean? And so what I would assume then is now we have this opportunity, as I mentioned before, to bring this stuff into alignment for maybe even ourselves individually sometimes, like more so than in 2023. See, in 2023 now, it's funny because it's 22-23 right here on this side. So I guess that's the synchronicity, and it's the third. So in 2023, which is 322, right? In this time, this would be the time that there is somewhat of a fork in the road between us and they. Because see, the narrative is going to get into something so weird that it's going to fuse your brain. And let me explain to you how you know that this is already happening. It's not like just the Mandela effect, but it's the other effect. I'm not sure if you've seen this before, but it's the effect of where somebody will be saying something in like a video, and there will be two words on the screen. And based on the word that you read, you'll hear them say that. Okay? So I'm going to explain this one time, and maybe somebody share a video of this, but I've found two videos like this. And they just show you how, like, it's like a subliminal thing. They had one, it was about the Barbie and Ken. And it was like, did he say Barbie or did he say, in this case, fuck? And so they'll put the two words on the screen, Barbie and that word. And then every time this part plays back, if you read one word, it sounds like that in your mind. And if you read the other, it sounds like that in your mind. And these words are nowhere near alike linguistically,
Right, right.
What is that? It's a back door. It proves that there's now a back door into the consciousness. I call this the yeah, no. Yeah, no is the new phenomenon, because we never said that when we were younger. It was either yes or no. There was a maybe. No. But the yeah, no is like when you could be talking and then you'll be like, you'll feel your brain. Well, you'll just say it. Most people just say it. Yeah, no. But see, in true logic, these words don't go together. They're actually opposite. So what's actually happening in the brain is the brain is doing the opposite of singularity. It's fusing down. It's basically what would happen if you took two positive wires and you just held them together and right. So what I'm just giving you some awareness here that this is what you need to be aware of this phenomenon, because in 2023, this is how people start basically being tied into the narrative of the scarcity and the CDBCs and all this kind of stuff, rather than completely seeing the huge opportunity that is readily available within generative everything. So whether it's generative technology, whether it's generative holistics, the generative component of life is at its highest level. We have tapped into the regenerative components on all levels. So, but you got to focus, is you got to retrain yourself, right? It's a more rapid training, but you need to retrain yourself into generative things. But I'm mentioning this because the generative field is so abundant. Anybody starting in generative technology, if you may, at this stage, is guaranteed pretty much within 2 years to already had leapfrog the situation in the matrix where they would be coming in to basically try to determine at every point, as I discussed with you when we were talking before, about every point about how you're making your money and who you're paying with, and what is that name, and is that name a BOGO, as we used to call it? Is it a house, or is it a profile, or is it really you? And you know, and is every single thing accounted for? And I just call this AI IRS because neural networks are extremely powerful, but they in themselves are at the behest of their welders right now. And these systems that are coming out, when they're feeding all the medical data, they're feeding all this data, and they're flattening this data, don't think that this thing is like Google and just like a search engine. It's something entirely different. In fact, we are now at the brink. I think we're about 2 months away from GTP4. And once this is generative tech, this is generative AI, general intelligence, meaning that it will be at the level of thinking like a general human. You got folks over here still like, they're like, no, brother, that ain't gonna happen. And it's like, that's all the illusion that you're in. That's exactly what they've been doing. They've been messing with people's mind so that they got this weird way of seeing the reality, and it's blurry. It's not even the real lens of how the reality is actually designed and put together. And so thus there's like this feeling that if you're consistently making bad judgments and not in alignment with yourself and empowering yourself and those that are around you, that nothing's going to happen. And that's not how this works. You have a certain amount of an allotment of time. And how you know that you received the grace, if you may, or the gift, is because you would be getting knowledge and wisdom that is like people were trekking the desert for thousands of years to hear any of this that we're talking about right now. Even if you could read or if you could speak, you would have to have somebody that actually knew this stuff and was able to tell it to you, let alone put it into application.
Yeah. That's
right. So now we have it where we can put it into application. Like if you wanted to see the other world, it's literally one trip away, but it's not as necessarily about doing that, right? Like now it's like we spent so long thinking there wasn't a spiritual world. You know, even though, like I said, you take DMT, you'll still see right away there's a spiritual world. It doesn't mean that you know what to do there. It doesn't mean you could take all the ayahuasca you want, and it doesn't mean that you know now what to do on the spiritual plane, but you know the spiritual plane exists. So imagine people who would spend 40, 50 years and never even, they just got this Jehovah thing they've been worshiping, and they never even seen the real spiritual plane before, right? So in conclusion, I want to also say that the deep level of knowledge here is that everything is really about your foundation. You have to have the courage to go back in if you need to rework your foundation and get on something solid. And the reason is because obviously when you even grow up in dogmas or you have things happen to you when you're younger, you base everything that you're experiencing on the world from those dogmas. So everything goes into that, like I said, angel or devil category when you have a heavy Christian religion programming sitting under the layer of your metaphysics. You see what I mean? And then so sometimes you got to go back and watch your consciousness and watch your mind and see how much of that residue is still left that is allowing you to go on with certain absurdities that is short-circuiting your very energy. In order to have access to the complete cosmos, you must have a pass. The way that you get a pass through the cosmos is that you actually will help all of the children. You don't care what color they are, any of that, that you will help the children as if they're your own. Because see, what a bad judge does is we got bad judges in the world. They judge the children and like they're not theirs. Like they'll give a young cat 20 years, but he'll never give his son 20 years. So he's not treating that child like it's his child. Because he'd be like trying to rehabilitate his son and all that kind of stuff. So our hard north is always to let us know that we're basically upholding the children for real. And we don't care what color those children are. Because every being coming into this space is to be given the proper opportunity to travel, to not only explore, meaning to go out into the reality and to be mentored by the reality, but also to go into that, into the internal. Because is that we already are coming from at least a type 2 civilization because we realize how to harness energy from a star. And this art of harnessing stars is what you would call genetics, okay? Because the gen in genetics is about stars and it's about spirits and it's about specifically spirits that have a specific kind of energy. So what our ancestors were engaged in doing is they were engaged in building organisms and experiences. And now we're inside of this super hacked experience because the holiest of holies has been breached, which is your consciousness. Mm. Because, and the reason why you know it's been breached is because like your dream in many ways can start serving you up things that you don't really want to see. And sometimes your dreams will intentionally somehow get hacked in a certain way and you have this experience that you don't want to have. And then when you get up, you be like, man, I'm glad that wasn't that. I'm glad that was a dream.
Yes.
And the truth is that when you're going through that experience, like you're going through a lot of trauma. Mm-hmm. Like some people can wake up and their pillows will be hot with tears. Mm. It'll be so much sadness in what they experience within this dream. So if we rewind again to, let's say, even the origins of things, we have to realize that we're beings that we didn't use languages initially. The only purpose of a language is really to be able to say a shape. And the only use for doing that, which is called evocation, is to create something in physical realities. Mm. What we're calling physical realities. However, there is original faculty that we still have right now, which is why you dream, which was the original way that we communicated, which was through image. Mm-hmm. Right. So we would send whatever it is that we wanted to communicate to each other through imagery and through feeling and senses, not through language. And so when you can think of when language gets introduced, it's more of like the dark day of the mind, because now a mind that used to be able to, when you close your eyes, that you could see things just as clear as you see things with them open, but you would see whatever you thought about. That faculty now being where when you close your eyes, you see mostly only darkness and you cannot create images until you, one, give up basically consciousness of the body. That means go to sleep. And then, so basically reach a certain relaxed state to where you detach from the body, and then this olfactory, this system actually starts working automatically. But when it starts working, it is out of control. Like, because which of course in control would be technically a lucid dreamer, somebody who can control the dream, right? And so now that, we're, like looking at it from that level, and we're saying, okay, so can we move back into the past and remove ourselves from an action or an event? And in order to kind of like, well, because the context of the story was to kind of say, well, that wasn't me, or to remove myself from the situation so that situation never occur.
Yes.
But the situation did occur. So what happens is that when we start messing around with time, which would be to rest around in our mind, like I'm going to erase that. We have to understand that what we actually do to ourselves as an organism is we go to the place that it is inside of us, and we kill it, and we seal off and cut off the area. Okay. Now, the important part of seeing it that way is that what happens if you seal off and cut off all of your senses, all like your heart, your brain, because all these different things that you don't like are lodged into these different parts of your real organism. In order for you not to feel it anymore, you have to go and actually, you have to, so you see what I'm saying? Like, this is something that's often missed. It's like, how do you stop caring? Like, when you don't care anymore, like people don't care about the planet anymore. You know why? They're like, man, shit, I'm already dealing with it. How am I going to think about the planet? So it's technically, it's like it's a state of awareness where the being does not feel anymore. And if you look at the reality with all the cartoons or all of the TV shows, and somebody get their head blown off and something happens, and now there's a racial war, and so then it starts to just become I don't like. But if you say specifically, and this is just the awareness, because this is all one organism. If you don't like even a specific race, you start killing that race inside of you. So if a nation was the heart of the earth and you don't like that nation anymore in your mind, you kill your heart. But that goes across the board for everybody. So even if another group of or nation is the brain of the organism and we don't like that being, we start killing our brain. Literally, that's how it all works. It's a feedback system that it was like so it was like when the design was created, there was never a greater design. So they just chose to continue to use the same design. This is what we're in. So that way, when we ever identify the design, we would identify everything. So it's not that, oh, there's a bunch of varieties. No, there's one design that can put forth a bunch of varieties. They say, oh, the big thing is made up of a bunch of small things. So it's a paradox. And when you start learning how to navigate it, it starts requiring you to, because like in these times, for instance, we've been discussing how, like where you would be, because we're a magnetic vehicle.
Yes.
If you stop caring, you would kind of be on the side of your vehicle.
Okay.
Because you wouldn't basically be attracted to your vehicle. That's why when you see magnets come, they snap together, right? If you ever get out of the body, you'll find that when you get closer to your body, you snap back in. Like it's like a magnetic attraction, because the whole field is magnetic. But when you don't want to be in the experience anymore because of pain and not caring, see, this is all stuff going on behind the scenes of the real organism that we're actually in. So when you stop caring, you stop attracting to the body. And so you start being on the side of the body. And being on the side of the body actually then allows the other things that you've created, what we call the eidolons, entities, spirits, etc. The other things that you create, because your whole system is just like one big orgasmic system. How is the heart pumping? Like, have you ever sat down and listened to just somebody's heart and just for a moment be like, man, this thing be pumping for like 80, 90 years. What battery do we have go 80, 90 years pumping?
Facts. Yeah.
You see what I mean? So it's like we're just like now at this stage where since 2023 is coming, we have to realize we're at the height now of the knowledge of men. Like now all is disclosed. So it's easy now to see the narratives, meaning the stories that have basically caught our people up into just a complete loop and even a self-destruct sequence. We have to realize that we're such powerful beings. Any story that you're hearing about life and about existence, you still have to weigh whether or not that story is even real. Okay. Because of how the magnitude of what we're actually in. Because the thing is that you need to go with knowledge that cannot be refuted. What we call the gems. The gems, nobody can steal them from you because they rob themselves of it. It's like the moment they steal the gem, they rob themselves of the gem. It's like the real things in life that you will have to truly, truly seek. But now notice this, though, what I was reading about the type of civilization. When the civilization is very advanced, it utilizes the energy that is already being delivered to it. Like right now, we on a planet, and every day, like if you're out in the hot sun, that sun has got energy coming off of it, and a panel will take the energy and store the energy somewhere, right? But that's not all that the energies that are moving around, but that's one of them. But notice how if we got to mine every day, which is what going to work is. Because when you go to work, you got to use your mind. So you're mining. That's all the mining the gold stuff, right? Like it's like now that you're going to mine, it means that you're on a whole backwards ass technology now because you don't need to mine. Like, what do we mine for? We mine for resources, and resources are energy.
Yes.
Right? But if energy is already coming, all we would need to do is just put ourselves in the position to receive. We wouldn't have to be miners. This is why magic doesn't work very well in these new systems that they've created with all these different entities and all this kind of stuff. Most of that shit don't even work. This is why most of the people that use it, they still be living at their grandma's house. You don't actually see the proof of the wisdom of the type of people that it's supposed to produce. And this is something where we would have to just look at personally as ourselves and be like, okay, check, it doesn't work. What's next? And you just got to be in your paint by yourself. It doesn't matter if everybody else agrees that it doesn't work. Like religious systems don't work. They're broken for real. They're about religion. So anytime they start talking about Jesus or any of that stuff, get away from it. It's not even something you should play with, the entities that play around with that, right? But yet, you know, even right now, it's like they're cooking off a half-baked, I talked about it's like a half-baked Antichrist. We get like a B-rated movie Antichrist. This is how watered down the reality is. Even the prophecies are coming out like watered down, like, damn, I thought the Dajjal was going to have like one eye, and like with the other color eye, they was going to come from the east. They was going to be flowing with robes. The sky was going to get dark. You know what I mean? They had like this, and it'd be just Kanye West and Alex Jones sitting up there dooming everybody and dooming the system and dooming themselves because they bought into a narrative. And then you got to think, okay, so will those beings rapidly be making it to a type 1, type 2, type 3 civilization? Because that's when you got to look back in yourself and say, what kind of civilization is this? Like all of these beings that I got that live inside of me, how is the real communication going on between the king and his land, right? Which is the body. And if people miss that, for instance, like the whole thing is so super connected. The ley lines that run down the earth, which are the same ley lines people go down when they die. Like, do you know when you die, you go down a highway right away? It's called, and they're straight lines. That's what they call the old straight track. And cemeteries generally are always where the big like the LAX or the ATL of where the whole transfer is about to go, because this thing is definitely not finna waste anything what we're in. People be thinking they're gonna die. So you think you could get out of it that easy? See, we created death because we were afraid of life. We needed something to kind of stop life and start life over again, because we would get headlong in the infinity crazy stuff that we needed to be like, okay, we need to stop and start again. You know, sometimes that happens in your life where you like, man, look, let me start over again in life. So that's called death, but it's not real. And what this is about now is like, so you got an ancient system, right? So now when I say type 3 civilizations, all you had to do was read in the book that I said, the Alien Wombs and Alien Parents for the Tsars, which were the Sudanese women, were calling upon Zarin or Jinn from the stars and impregnating women with the entities, okay, which is the core of most of the magic you're looking at today. And a bad replica, by the way, because they don't know the rituals, they don't know the entities. Most of the entities are unclean. There's a whole different language to talk to these other beings. And the oracles and the czars, they were the one, the mermaids, etc., they were the ones that spoke that language. So when they cut off their mother, like what you see Orion is sitting there, you know, he's hitting his mother Taurus. When they cut off their mother, they really could not actually continue to interface with all these high levels of knowledge and wisdom, because it takes a certain level of ground and power, but it doesn't mean that you won't be able to impress everybody on a type 1 civilization or like a third world. You know, they always talk about third world country, right? What about a third world where you come there and the cats are still fighting each other? They haven't reached singularity yet. What is singularity? It has nothing to do with some computer systems. Those are the replica byproducts, Borg. Real singularity is when the organism, which is made up of positive and negative currents, is magnetic field, which we call the torus. But in that process, this field is unified and working together, but consists of opposing poles. This is the same thing as if a male and a female are together, and then they, even though they're different, they decide to bring their two energies together to work for something that's going to benefit the two. Versus male and female could be together totally in conflict, not feeling each other, feeling the opposing forces, choose not to work together, but still be around each other, but actually be working against each other. You see, that's the easiest way to understand the field that you're talking about, because when you start thinking of positive and negative, you'll get caught up because you think negative is the bad one and positive is the good one. We went beyond that, right? Mm-hmm. But then most people never went beyond that because they're still trying to find the bad one and the good one. They still have this good category and bad category to place everything in. But the truth is, again, the reason why we have nighttime, the reason why bad things do happen to us, the reason why we have bad dreams, etc., is because we're not made up of completely good. Mm-hmm. We're not beings that are what you would call good. We're not beings that are just made up of one pole. So now, you know, this process, you know, just zooming in again to what you're asking, the process is that you would go through and you would actually heal these situations. Now, there's a standard way that people kind of look at healing, and they think of forgiveness. Like, I got to forgive it. And then they just be like, well, I can't.
A lot of people think,
yes. The thing is about the organism, again, that we're in is when you're trying to do something that requires the body with the mind, it's not possible. So watch this. So the mind, it is fascinated with power and knowledge and all of this stuff, right? Like the mind, if you let it tell you, it's the most powerful thing. And it can talk about all of that, but be put into a situation and start cowering itself. Because courage, it comes from the body. It comes from this, right? Like, so all this is like, now you got to go and do. That's why your hands are here. That's why your feet are here. You got to go and do what you were talking about. So you can say in your mind, man, I'm the most toughest. And then when a situation pop off, now your body is involved. You see what I mean? So the mind will be like, but because it's up to the body now to show how courageous it really is. You see what I mean? So this is where the mind has to be in alignment with the body, because folks be trying to like be just the mind and fly off. And the problem is that then they can never heal. Mm. See, it takes courage to come back in the body. That's why they be trying to leave. Mm. And the reality in the society, it perpetuates this leaving our responsibilities, leaving our creations. Mm. If we were the originals, we created everything. No different than something must have created us. No different than something must have created that until you get into the motionless, which we will not speak of. Like that was really the knowledge that they was like, this is the black goo, this is the dark matter. We don't talk about it because we know it's the access point basically to our infinite. It's like anytime we feel like something's not possible, we ping that and it overcomes everything. It's not something that we have to, this is kind of like why in Islam, in the truest tense of it, you don't draw pictures of God. You don't try to even call God, say God's name or nothing like that. It's something that's kept into like, no. Come on, we won't even assume that you would think you know what you were talking about in the state that you're in. So then what it would do is it would be able to set up like goals for us, like things that we know that, hey, I'm going to eventually reach that stage. Now we believe sometimes that we just already have accelerated the entire ladder. So, and then we'd be still struggling, still can't figure out what's going on in the matrix, this kind of stuff. So that's why I said the mind's got to align with the heart. And so this is a good time during this build to just really, really lay, esoteric knowledge in itself, mechanics to the realm that we're actually living in, entities that, are in the space, etc. All that stuff can be very clear. It could be clarified. And that does kind of depend on, just the host in himself, though, because, the host, the host is the key to harnessing the power and the potential of the guests.
The host.
And bro, Rich is
that's what I do. I harness. I literally harness. That's why they love me. I harness. I listen, Seven. My mission is to not as the host of this show, but even I'm a music producer, even as a music producer, even in life, I could bring the best out of somebody. And I noticed, Seven, and this, you don't have to respond to this because I'm about to go on to the next question. In life, what I noticed that I even had the ability to bring the worst out of a person. And that's when I realized my power. I could bring the best or the worst out of a person. So I choose to bring the best out instead of bringing the best, because I know how to evoke emotion. That's one of my superpowers. I can evoke emotion. I could, from somebody, I could draw it from somebody. So I rather draw the best than the worst out of somebody. Yes. But I'm absolutely glad we started the way we started, my brother. I mean, the chat is absolutely super glad that with the way we started and you answered my question. Your name is Seven, though. I want to go into this, Seven. Your name is Seven. Powerful name. Powerful name. Seven is written all over the Bible. It's written in stories and movies. Seven this, seven that, seven this. If we start the days of the week with Sunday, Saturn, which they say is Saturday, becomes the seventh day. So seven Saturday. Seven is connected numerically to Saturn. So talking about Saturn and talking about time travel, because they say Saturn, they call Saturn Father Time. They say Saturn